The calendar flipped to June. You know what that means. We're now in hurricane season.
There are many, many predictions for a very active hurricane season. I don't want any of you to get focused on that. I want you to get focused on your family and just one.
And with more storms expected, the way you get critical information about those impacts could look different.
There's a world beyond the cone.
Don't panic, prepare. We're going to tell you what you need.
We need flashlights and batteries.
If you're a last-minute person, you're going to be able to get your hands on.
How to protect your home and family.
You can even feel the rattling here too.
Wouldn't justify keeping this tree.
What the deal is with property insurance and how we cover trouble in the tropics. This is Weathering the Storm, a News 6 Pinpoint Weather Hurricane Special. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells. Whether you just moved to Central Florida or you've lived here for decades, every hurricane season is different. And this year could be rocking. Don't worry, we're here to guide you through. Candace Campos, Jonathan Kegas, Samara Kokinos, Michelle Morgan, and Julie Broughton are standing by with what you should know and what you should do right now to prepare. But first, the buzz about this hurricane season set to be super active is hard to miss. The burning question on everyone's mind seems to be why? I recently sat down with Dr. Phil Klotzbach from Colorado State University. Here's what he says is driving the forecast for an active season. According to the latest projections from Colorado State University, we're in for an eventful season. But what's behind the high numbers of expected storms? It all comes down to the transition from El Nino to La Nina.
The El Nino that we had this past winter is dissipating very quickly. We're likely to be to neutral and then probably La Nina conditions by the upcoming hurricane season.
El Nino, characterized by warmer waters over the equatorial Pacific Ocean, typically brings stronger westerly winds across the tropics, which suppresses hurricane formation. La Nina, on the other hand, weakens these winds, providing a more conductive environment for hurricanes to develop. So the first reason is the fading El Nino, followed by the emergence of La Nina. And the third reason, the ocean temperatures are soaring.
Combined with the fact the Atlantic remains record warm. Basically, a warm Atlantic means more fuel for the storms, tends to be lower pressure, a more unstable atmosphere, all of which also tend to favor a well above normal Atlantic hurricane season.
When crafting his forecast, Dr. Klotzbach looks at previous years with similar conditions. Dr. Klotzbach sees parallels with 1887, 1926, and a few other notable years.
Our last analog is actually 2020.
Okay, so very active.
Yeah. So all those years were very busy, just depending on where.
At least you didn't say 2004. Something you're going to see a lot of is this cone. And Jonathan, it won't look exactly like the cone that we've come to know.
It's a little different this year for sure. By the middle of the hurricane season, you're going to notice something a little different. A new air experimental cone going to run alongside the traditional cone. Here's why.
It opens up a discussion where people realize that there's a world beyond the cone.
After years of research, the National Hurricane Center is looking into changes with its iconic tropical forecasting tool. So the reason for the change is people are just paying too much attention to the cone and not to the potentially life-saving watches and warnings that are issued by the National Hurricane Center. I'll show you the example of what is going to change. This is the cone that we've come to know over the past 2 decades. This example from Hurricane Ian back in 2022. You see the cone remaining prominent over the state of Florida. The colors along the coast, those are the coastal watches and warnings issued by the National Hurricane Center. Now the change that you will see in August of this upcoming hurricane season, both of these are going to run side by side. So the old cone not going away. Same example, same advisory from Hurricane Ian. Note the difference. The cone kind of disappears over land and the colors are bright and prominent.
So even if people don't understand necessarily what all those colors mean, they're going to walk away with a threat assessment.
Some of the stories that we did when this first came out, people were like, oh, that looks more confusing than the initial. What would you say to those folks that think, okay, now that we have these colors and a cone, what would you say to them?
And that sort of feedback was expected because that's been the dialogue all along. And that's why it's been at times frustrating that the cone didn't evolve.
Back in 2022, when Hurricane Ian was headed toward Florida, people were focused on the center of the cone pointed toward the Big Bend in Tampa. At that time, however, life-saving alerts were in place for Southwest Florida, where the storm did eventually make landfall. Many people, though, chose not to evacuate.
You gave the example of Ian. The storm surge watches and warnings were hoisted well in advance, ample notice. But people no longer look at watches and warnings anymore.
And it's the hope of the National Hurricane Center that with this experiment, more people will begin focusing on the hazards.
The cone does have use. It does have application. You use it, I use it. It has application. So I'm not telling people to stop looking at the cone. I'm saying, yes, look at the cone and look at these other components at the same time.
Jamie wanted to make clear that, again, this is an experiment and it's likely to evolve. And here at the rest of the National Hurricane Center, they want to hear your thoughts on this new cone. You can take your phone, put it up to this screen right there. You can scan the QR code on the screen. A link is going to pop up to our website with more information on how you can share your thoughts with them.
We asked our News 6 viewers if they're prepared for this hurricane season. Most of you said you're working on it. If you haven't done it already, the first thing you should do is to put together your hurricane supply kit. Michelle and Julie are here with what you should start getting together right now.
Yeah, so your hurricane kit should have everything from copies of important documents to cash and rain gear.
You obviously know food and water are also on the list, but how much do you really need? Here's what I put in my cart. We keep reminding you right now is the time to get prepared for hurricane season. So I just got off clickorlando.com/hurricane. I have my supply checklist printed out. We're heading into Target, so let's go get stocked up. We are off to find water. Remember the water we always tell you to put in your bathtub? That's not to drink. That water is actually for flushing the toilet if you lose water. So we're off to find gallons of water. You need 1 gallon of water for every member of your household for 3 to 7 days. When you're looking for water, you need 1 gallon per member of your household per day for 3 to 7 days. This one has 2.5 gallons in it. Let's go find non-perishable food. So think about items that you don't need a microwave or a stove and don't require refrigeration. So things like granola bars are a good option, and also these little fruit cups that don't have to be refrigerated, those are good too. If you're looking at canned items and they don't have a little pop top like that, you need to make sure you have a manual can opener. Next step. It's also a good idea to grab some of these Ziploc bags in the 1 gallon size. You can freeze water in them, and you can also put your important documents and paper in them to protect them in case you have flooding or water damage. You also want to make sure you have 2 weeks worth of prescriptions, and while you're there, if you don't already have a first aid kit, it's good to pick one of those up as well. So here we have one right here. So next on our list, we need flashlights and batteries. So checking things out here. This is cool. This comes with 2 flashlights and it comes with the batteries as well. You want to make sure you have plenty of batteries. Right here in the same aisle, it's always a good idea to have a carbon monoxide alarm if you don't already have one. This one is $27. A couple of options for fire extinguishers. We have this easy fire spray and also just your regular garage fire extinguisher right here. So we'll grab both of those. And don't forget to get some extra personal care items and toiletries and any over-the-counter medication you think you may need. If you have pets, don't forget about them. Make sure they have enough food, medication, and supplies for a few days. It's also a good idea to have a portable phone charger on hand in case you lose power. You can find a full list at clickorlando.com/hurricane. And if you already have a storm kit at home, double check the expiration dates on all of your stuff. And to help make your items last, keep canned food in a cool, dry place and store boxed food in closed metal or plastic containers.
And also you can get a lot of these items Julie just mentioned tax-free during Florida's Disaster Preparedness Tax Holiday. The first runs through June 14th. The second tax holiday is from August 24th through September 6th. You could get a generator that costs $3,000 or less tax-free. Coming up later, I'll walk you through how to set one of these generators and what you should also pick up from the store to do it safely. Tom?
Coming up, why you should take a closer look at your home insurance policy.
Yeah. And Tom, we're also going to be talking about zombie trees. They could be right near your home and you might not even know it yet. And I'm going to tell you why they're so dangerous and how you can spot them before the next storm. Samara.
And it's one of the questions that we get asked a lot during hurricane season. What do I do with my home? I'll tell you how to protect the most vulnerable areas and the surprising thing you can do to keep water from getting inside.
Just 1 inch of water in a home can cause upwards of $25,000 in damages.
FEMA wants you to talk to your insurance agent now to figure out what is covered under your policy. Is it enough? And does it cover the right things? FEMA says many home insurance policies do not include flooding and hurricane wind damage. Also, right now, write notes or take video of all your stuff to help you get reimbursed in case there is damage. You, our viewers, have been telling us your biggest concern this hurricane season is property insurance. Homeowners say their premiums are sky high, but the state says there are signs of improvement. Investigator Louis Bolden has been covering the crisis for years. He has new details on where things stand.
These policies are slowly going up as people for renewals are going up.
Charlotte and John Dole are like so many Floridians, waiting for their property insurance to renew. Theirs renews in June, right at the start of hurricane season.
Are you holding your breath?
At this point, yes.
They've lived in their Mineola home for 20 years, and for the last few years, like most Floridians, have watched their premiums skyrocket. In 2020, they paid $2,099 per year. In 2021, it increased to $2,640. 2022, it was $3,408. And upon renewal in 2023, they were offered $9,653 per year.
I was just like flabbergasted, and I was like, why? And they said they just had a price increase, and that's just the way it was. But I said, I live in a very moderate 4-bedroom, 2-bath home, no pool, no lake.
They declined that renewal. The Insurance Information Institute estimates insurance increased 42% in 2023, with the average annual premium in Florida $6,000. The average U.S. premium was $1,700, 11% higher than the previous year. The 2024 Property Insurance Stability Report confirms where we stand county by county. So let me show you where we are. In Central Florida, Brevard County is the most expensive with $3,202 as the annual average premium. Orange County is next at $3,100 per year, then Seminole at $3,050. In Volusia County, the average is $2,608. In Osceola, $2,527. In Lake, where the Doles live, it is $2,241. Marion County is $2,039, and Sumter County is closest to the national average at $1,824 annually.
Being in Florida, I mean, I feel we're punished with insurance.
Many insurers have already left the state or gone out of business, but there is evidence there could be more and prices could continue rising. This year's report confirms the Property Insurance Stability Unit, which was created to detect and prevent insurer insolvencies, is currently monitoring 19 companies. Of the 3 latest, 2 for requesting a rate increase that exceeds 15%, and 1 for filing a notice it intends to non-renew more than 10,000 policies within a 12-month period.
My gosh, I'm going to have to move out of the state of Florida.
Getting results, Louis Bolden, News 6.
The state says there are emerging signals that reforms passed in the last couple of years are having an impact on the market. Those signals include 6 new property insurers. They believe more competition will eventually make the prices level out.
And Tom, your home is probably your biggest investment. So right now you're going to want to figure out which parts of your property need to be strengthened. I spoke with 2 expert companies in Central Florida who walked me through what you can do and the surprising things that make a big difference.
Don't wait, you run out of time.
BFAR Contracting gets inundated with calls weeks before a storm comes. One of the first things they say to look at are windows.
So one is we get a sheet of plywood
and we make it bigger than this window.
Then you'll drill into the concrete to secure the plywood. Is there another option?
These are ply locks. The cool thing about these is there's no drilling. Okay, so what you'll do is you'll measure the opening of the window here.
Okay.
And you're just going to take a 1/4 inch off of the top and the sides so that it's a 1/8 inch all around. And the plywood simply slides into this clip, and then it just locks right into place.
Another thing you might not even think about, your fence.
If you're looking along it, is to document, you can see if it's leaning or how it stands up straight.
Oh.
So that's a really good angle.
Okay.
As you can see here, we have a little bit of damage.
Next, check your gutters.
Just making sure the gutters will push the water away from the home, putting the sandbags in front of the doors to keep the water from coming inside the house.
Meantime, experts with Paul Davis Restoration have seen firsthand what happens after flooding. Believe it or not, the paint on your house makes a big difference.
It's not chalking or milking when we kind of rub it. I don't see a lot of cracks in the exterior. But even a good paint like this, if the water builds up on the exterior, it's actually going to start to weep into the house. To where you're going to get it into your carpet, into your drywall.
And if you do have cracks, experts suggest using this.
And a good elastomeric paint will actually suck its way into those little tiny cracks and prevent moisture from getting into your house. Typically, one of the biggest calls we get after a storm for water intrusion is the roof.
Surprisingly, your garage door plays a big role when it comes to protecting your roof. Experts say you should make sure your garage door has a good wind rating, complete with bars for reinforcement.
You can even feel the rattling here too, so it's loose and it's going to allow some wind to get in there. And once this goes, the chances of the roof going, if the wind is that strong, are pretty great.
When you look at the cost of a roof compared to the cost of repairing the damages and having to get a new roof after.
Yeah, it's much easier to do the maintenance on your roof and keep it up and go ahead and replace it after the 10 years.
You also want to make sure to put away any yard furniture or yard decor. You're also going to want to trim any trees around your roof.
And Samara, while you're doing all of that, you should also take a look at other trees around the home. They might look healthy, but some trees could be dangerous and you might not even know it. Now, these are called zombie trees, and here is how you can spot them.
Every time we have a hurricane in this area, usually the first 2 or 3 weeks, we get nonstop calls of trees on houses.
Certified arborist and owner of McCullough Tree Service, Shelby McCullough, knows trees.
If any tree would be called a zombie tree, as I've heard the term, it would be this one.
Zombie trees are trees that look healthy, but are quickly dying on the inside.
I would say if this was hanging over your home, wouldn't justify keeping this tree.
When homeowners are analyzing the health of their tree, they might think to start from the top, but really, start at the bottom. First step, check the tree flare.
This one is pretty good, but if you see a tree that goes straight into the ground with no trunk flare, chances are it has a buried trunk flare.
So you want a little bit like a tree skirt kind of action, right?
Exactly. So what we'll do is we'll pull all the dirt back around there and inspect, and then if we need to address any issues, we can. Sometimes we pull it back and we realize the whole root system is completely decayed.
Gotcha.
The tree's got to go.
Step 2, check the structure.
If you see that your tree has co-dominant structures like this, where there's 2 trunks that are similar in size, we call that the aspect ratio. That means that the tree has a likelihood of splitting in that place.
What would be your step 3?
Step 3 would be to stand back and take a good look at the crown. And by crown, we mean the canopy.
Okay.
Usually if a tree starts to decline, it'll start to die back in the very tips. So if you look up there at the very top, you see some dieback.
As we gear up for hurricane season, trimming your trees well ahead of a storm is important, while also making sure you don't over trim. As a plain old Jane homeowner, you'd think, oh, they're just making the tree more aerodynamic.
Right.
So, in case of a storm, it doesn't have all the leaves holding it back. But you're saying
it's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. And everybody would say, oh, you want the wind to be able to pass through the tree.
You think, right?
You don't want the tree to be like a sail, but it's actually the opposite. If the tree is a sail, it can actually hold up against the wind.
And just because your tree might show some red flags, it does not mean it needs to be completely removed. Shelby recommends reaching out to reliable tree companies for help with even extending the lifespan of the tree while also decreasing the risk of collapse.
Candace thinks that's really almost counterintuitive for me with the cutting of the tree.
Yeah, you think a sail versus,
good information there. Hey, do you at home ever wonder what it's like to cover a storm?
It's like bullets hitting us in the face here.
Oh yeah, our News 6 team has been out in the elements during some of the nastiest hurricanes. How they stay safe while bringing you the sights and sounds for hours. And coming up a little later, it can help save your life. We'll tell you where to build a safe room and how you can get the whole family involved. Welcome back. Joining me now is a guy who has weathered many storms here in Central Florida, News 6 investigator Mike DeForest. All right, Mike, we're nearing 20 years since one of the most destructive and active hurricane seasons we've ever seen. Florida's impacted by not one, not two, not three, but 4 storms in a span of about 6 weeks. Talk to me about your experience during all of that.
I think that summer, and the one takeaway I always have is I think I was fairly new to Central Florida. I think a lot of people we worked with and who lived in this community were fairly new to hurricanes, and even folks who had been around a long time had never seen one take a direct hit on Central Florida. And I think there was a little bit of excitement during Hurricane Charlie that because everybody kind of assumed that we were inland, so we were going to be okay. So I remember there was the excitement with Charlie. Then we got hit. People lost power. Wasn't so fun anymore. Then when Francis came around a couple weeks later, then we're like, oh my goodness, it was dread. It was terror that now we know what a hurricane is and we have to deal with this. Then a couple weeks later, Gene came along, and I think everybody's attitude at that point was just get it over with.
Get me through this.
Just rip the Band-Aid off. So that was one heck of a summer.
You have to remember too, and what Mike is talking about, that people had moved here since 1960. We'd not had an eye come right over Orlando since Donna in 1960. So all of a sudden getting Charlie right over top of the metro, all the way out to Ormond Beach, that was a very big deal. There you are, look at you. Look at you, you're in Sanford.
Yeah, I still have not completely dried out from that night. It was, again, I was fairly new to Central Florida then, first major hurricane that I covered. And I still have people 20 years later saying, I remember watching you all night during Hurricane Charlie. We were the only show in town in terms of live shots out in the field during the storm. And the reason was, just before the hurricane approached Central Florida, I was given my choice of where to be. And back in those days, we used those big old, we called them ENG microwave trucks. You've probably seen them that have the big tall mast that goes up into the sky. Well, I knew that when a storm hits and it starts blowing, that mast has to come down for safety reasons. And I had known that we could get a live shot from the south shore of Lake Monroe in Sanford. We could keep our mast down. Our tower was on the other side in Volusia County, so we could shoot across the lake with no obstacles by keeping our mast down. And I thought that was a great idea, that we would keep us on the air. That was my downfall, because then as the night progressed and the storm got bigger, everybody else's live shots had to go down, but mine was the only one that was still up that night. And so I wanted to go dry off and say, I'm going to go in the truck for a little bit. And you guys were like, no, Mike, we need you to stay out there.
I've been talking for 30 hours, Mike. Help me out. Okay, when you're in the field, you're kind of like my eyes and my ears. I have radar. I can see what's going on. But you're the one who's actually there. So when you're headed to your location to become me in the field, how do you prepare for your coverage? What are you thinking about? What do you do? What are you lining up?
Safety is always foremost on where we pick positions. We want to make sure that we're not in an area that we're going to get hit with debris. You may not be able to tell it from where we're at, but we're usually in an area that is wide open with nothing that's going to fall on us. Since the time I got here, our bosses have made it clear to us that if we ever feel like we're unsafe, we can pull the plug. But part of us likes being out there.
All right, real quick, last question. What's your favorite memory? Number one. Do you have one?
Well, my favorite memory of Charlie was actually getting to, after the storm, and we were finally getting a chance to dry off, and I came back to the studio here where you guys didn't have any power. We were running this, I compare it to Apollo 13, where they had to turn off as much power as possible just to keep the lights on.
We did.
And I got on the anchor desk, and I was talking to you guys, and at one point I'm like, here's how wet it was, and I took off my rubber boot and poured the water out on the desk. That's how wet we were.
Those were the days. If you missed it, you're lucky. Mike, thank you for now and for the last 20 years. It's been a good run, brother.
Let's not do it again this summer.
All right, let's go back to Jonathan in Samara.
It's one of the first places people go ahead of the storm, the gas station. But there's a way to beat the crowds coming up the house hack for storing gas.
Plus, there's critical but could be dangerous. The do's and don'ts of generators and what else you should pick up at the store before plugging yours in.
Pinpoint Doppler radar, the future in weather detection, only on News 6. If you're just joining us, this is Weathering the Storm, a News 6 Pinpoint Weather Hurricane Special. We're expecting a very busy several months in the tropics. These are the names for the 2024 hurricane season. The World Meteorological Organization uses a 6-year cycle for storm names, so we last saw these names in 2018. The exception is if a storm is retired. Florence and Michael were retired that year and replaced with Francine and Milton. It only takes one storm to have major consequences. And Candace, you can attest to this.
Yeah, I guess I can, can't I? Hurricane Andrew destroyed my childhood home more than about 30 years ago. When the storm hit South Florida, I was inside that home at the time, and I'm here today thanks to the half bathroom my family used to ride out the Category 5 hurricane. Now, preparing a safe room, it's not hard, and as you can see, you can get the whole family involved. When picking out a safe room, find a room with the least amount of windows. That could be a room or a closet. In our case, it's this small bathroom. Before a storm, I like to convert this linen closet into a hurricane supply headquarters. So in case you have to run in here during the storm, you have everything you need in one spot. Some of my supplies include plenty of water for everyone. A few jugs could also be useful in case the water is shut off and you need to wash your hands or flush the toilet. Have a cooler to keep things like medications cold. A battery-operated fan to help circulate the air. And make sure to have a light source for each person, like flashlights or lantern to light up the room. And with many things battery-operated, make sure you have enough of the correct batteries. Staying up to date is key during a storm, so be sure to have multiple forms of communication. This includes a radio, a charged cell phone, and a weather radio. Now, one of my must-haves in a safe room is resealable plastic bags. You can use them for many things. You can seal important documents and IDs that you don't want to get wet. Other things like keys and your cell phone, or even things that smell a little bit like dirty diapers. Don't forget a complete first aid kit, assorted snacks, bug repellent, and baby wipes. Now remember, you could be in this room for hours. So make sure you pick things to keep you comfortable. That can include maybe a beach towel, a yoga mat, and some pillows. Okay. Speaking of comforts, make sure to get the whole family involved in preparing your safe room, including the kids. Have them pick out a special item to have in there. This could be a special toy, a game, or even an iPad, because these small comforts can also help ease any anxiety they might have during a storm. And if you do have to evacuate, make sure to pack extra keys, cash, medication, and again, those important documents. You'll also want to fill up the car with gas and bring a full gas can just in case. Now, Florida has designated evacuation zones, and now is the time to check to see if you live in one.
If your home in Florida was built after 2004, you're most likely at 115 or 125 mile an hour sustained winds. Therefore, if we have a hurricane that is less than that, you don't need to evacuate. You would only then need to evacuate for water.
And a reminder, an evacuation zone is very different than a flood zone. The state has a tool to find out if your home is in an evacuation zone and the route you should be taking. We've posted that information on clickorlando.com/hurricane. Michelle.
Thanks, Candace. Well, one of the biggest resources during and after a storm could be dangerous if you don't use it right. I'm talking about a generator, and there are some easy things you can do to keep your family safe.
So this is actually a smaller style generator. This is one that you're going to probably, if you're a last minute person, you're going to be able to get your hands on.
Michael Vita is the fire marshal for Lake County Fire Rescue. He's seen firsthand what could go wrong with generators.
We get burn injuries.
And carbon monoxide poisoning.
Dizziness, nausea, and all that stuff. So we'll go out there.
To avoid this, Vita says to keep your generator outside, away from anything that can catch fire like mulch. And make sure the exhaust is pointing away from you and your neighbors.
And what we see a lot of is people want to protect their assets. They They bought it at a store, and sometimes they want to put it inside a garage with even the door open. You don't want to do that.
One of the biggest mistakes you can make is putting your generator too close to your home. Your generator should be at least 20 feet away from any doors or windows.
Don't buy a 20-foot extension cord. Buy a 30 or 40-foot, that way, and run it all the way out. That way you're a safe distance from the house. Use what you have.
When it comes to extension cords, make sure you are using one that is heavy duty and can go outside.
You don't want to use something that's frayed or wrong size gauge. If you're powering a bigger appliance, you don't want to go from a thin cord to a big cord.
Once you've got your cord, plug your appliances directly into the generator.
You just want to do point to point.
So power strips are a big no-no?
Big no-no.
Okay.
Yes.
And those burn injuries Vita mentioned earlier can be avoided.
People will use the generator, all day, let it run out, let the fuel run out, and then they go to fill it while it's hot. Give it a little bit. Your fridge is going to be fine. You can deal without lights for a couple minutes, let it cool off, and then fill it appropriately.
Vita says you should make sure you have a working fire extinguisher, smoke alarms, and carbon monoxide detectors in your home. You might be wondering which generator is best for you. We have posted a link where you can find which size and wattage will work for your home at clickorlando.com/hurricane.
Every year, we see people rushing to home improvement stores to get a generator or to the grocery store to get water.
But there are two important items you may not know what to do with. News 6's Eric Von Aken explains how you can make gas go the extra mile in a special edition of Getting Results at Home.
The main reason that you want to try and pick up all of your hurricane supplies now, don't you have a Sawzall, Jeff? Okay, maybe not all. The main reason you want to try and pick up almost all of your hurricane supplies now before a storm is because it's all here, all in one place, all in stock. Like always, when a storm gets close, everything is flying off the shelves, and you may not get what you need. But you're probably saying to yourself right now, hold on, handy newsman and crafty cameraman Jeff. There's one thing that I can't buy ahead of time. I can't buy it until a storm actually gets close. This, right? When everybody rushes to the gas pumps at the same time, the lines get long and the gas runs out. But you can fill up your cans right now. Here's your first house hack. Use ethanol-free gas. Not 10%, not E85. It's got to say ethanol-free. And that gas lasts 6 months. So you can keep the gas in your garage. And then after the season, if there is no storm, you can use the gas for something else. Speaking of gas, a lot of people like to wait till it's too late to try and fill up their propane tanks. Propane, though, never goes bad, ever. So you can fill it up whenever you want. But here's the thing you need to know. This is another house hack. Some tanks are not refillable. Older tanks are definitely iffy. So this is Michael, the owner of Ace Hardware here in Sanford. And Michael, you wouldn't touch this tank.
That is correct. So this tank here, all tanks are required to be within 12 years of their manufacture date.
And you know that because it's stamped on it.
That's correct. This tank is not only out of date, but the rest of it is not legible. We have to be able to read the size of the tank and the date for it to be filled properly.
And this one also has a ton of rust. You don't like that.
That's the other problem there. When they look like this, they are also not safe to be filled.
We know some people like to exchange their propane tanks. That's fine, except know if you do that, you don't get a new one.
Correct.
And if you're not sure, just bring it up here to Ace, and Michael or one of the people here will tell you, and if they can't fill it, they'll get you a new one. You got plenty.
Absolutely.
Before hurricane season.
Come and see us ahead of time.
Ahead of time. We're Getting Results at Home. I'm Eric Von Aken here in Sanford, Getting Results News 6.
And we've been talking about preparing for a hurricane, but people often overlook what happens after. Crews tell me they see medical emergencies weeks after a storm hits. You might remember after Hurricane Ian, people in parts of Seminole County had to use boats to and from their homes for months because of the flooding. You might not see this much water, but there are things you should look out for. One that stands out to me a lot are trees.
So there's two different things that could happen. Of course, the wind type of the trees getting snapped.
But what about trees left standing in flooded areas?
If the root structure gets soft, we see trees topple down much later. It's normally, again, right around that flooded area.
If you're driving through flooding, there's an even bigger risk than getting stuck in your car.
We have sinkholes here in Florida, so if you can't see the roadway, you should not be on that roadway. Turn around, don't drown.
Also, don't walk in any water.
Water is contaminated. If you want to think about it, it's gone over cow fields, septic tanks, oil and gas over roadways. It is not safe to be in flooded water.
Not to mention, water can conceal power lines and other debris that can hurt you.
We really have a two-pronged hit when we have a hurricane. We have first the localized flooding, which is in the interior areas of the county. And then the second hit is about a week, sometimes a week and a half later, when all the water from Brevard, Orange County reaches to the St. Johns River through the tributaries and the creeks.
This high water rescue truck is a brand new tool that Seminole County is using to get results in its hurricane response. And this liftgate is going to make it easier for people to get on board.
We just purchased these vehicles last year in an effort to be able to get to people who are trapped by floodwaters. We actually have 54 inches of clearance, water fording capability on these vehicles. In the past, we have been in places where we couldn't get to people with our high water rescue vehicles, and we've had to put boats in the water.
And I got to hop on board. How many people can actually fit in here?
We have room for 28 people, 3 crew members and 25 people that we can rescue out of the water.
Plus extra room for pets, wheelchairs, a few personal belongings, and additional rescue equipment that may be needed.
Standing water and moving water in 8 to 12 inches is enough to pull somebody off of their feet and into a drain.
And a good way to stay in the know about any dangers is to subscribe to alerts from your local county and local emergency management. They'll also give you updates about any shelters and any other resources available.
During every storm, you can find me right here, live, bringing you the latest information while also answering your questions. Those updates I bring you come from data collected by people brave enough to fly into the storm, the hurricane hunters. So how do they do it? Find out next. You might have heard of the hurricane hunters before. They fly into some of the most dangerous, powerful storms and bring us incredible images we would not be able to see otherwise. Those flights provide forecasters like myself critical information to help you prepare and stay safe before it's too late.
So we now try to get the aircraft into the storm as early in their life cycle as possible.
There's a reason why those spaghetti models start out all over the place and then eventually converge on a similar solution: better data.
And when we have aircraft data, that makes the model's forecast of the track and intensity of the storm 10 to 20% better.
Just by me flying, when I take off, the aircraft starts gathering very sensitive weather information. That comes both through the aircraft sensors and my forward Doppler radar in the nose.
Data is also gathered from the dropsondes being dropped into the storm and a wing SFMR to record what is happening on the ocean surface. There are two different types of aircraft that are flying into these storms collecting critical data. The first one, the C-130 from the United States Air Force. The second is on the NOAA side, the P-3. It's also collecting critical data by dropping instruments, but also recording the storm with its tail radar.
That's going to take similar to like a CAT scan of the storm, and they take that vertical profile and the imagery they get there directly into the environmental models.
And once that data starts flowing, model accuracy improves.
Once the storm gets over land, they have a lot of radar stations and other ways to get that data, but while it's offshore, aircraft are the main way that we're able to get that data.
Remember, models are guidance, not gospel. You should always take them with a grain of salt until the data from the hurricane hunter starts to come in. Always consult the NHC and, of course, News 6 when making critical decisions.
It truly is a group effort to bring you the latest information and warnings ahead of and during a storm. Here's how our Pinpoint weather team gets results and guides you through it, from sunup to sundown, from TV to online.
Hey everybody, it's meteorologist Candace Campos. It's about 4 a.m. working on all these computer models, making sure we get all the information ready to go for that early 5 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center. Once we get all that, we put it in the show, we get it online, so that way when you're waking up in the morning, you've got all the information that you need.
Hey there everyone, I'm meteorologist Samara Kokinas. It's midday. and I'm here to bridge the gap between meteorologists. So what I do is I keep up with all the incoming information that is still flowing throughout the day for all of the updates for the hurricanes. I also go into this handy dandy soundproof booth and basically record radio hits in case you lose power. You can still get the information that you need right on the radio.
Meteorologist Jonathan Kagas here. While all of that is going on, we are crunching the latest real-time data right here in the ClickOrlando.com studio, ready to bring that to you live and interactively on ClickOrlando.com, on News 6 Plus, and across all of our YouTube platforms.
Hi there. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells. During hurricane season, when a storm is threatening, I show up to work at 2 in the afternoon. I high-five Candace on her way out the door, and I'll see her again at 2 a.m. I've been working on models, tracking things all day long. There's the weather team working back there. They're doing the same thing. The 5 o'clock advisory will come out and we'll cruise right through the early shows, doing updates on every half hour as the storm approaches. And then the all-important 11 p.m. advisory. We want to get that in and at the top of the newscast so you can have everything you need to know about what to expect before you head to bed. When we're not on air, you can find updates around the clock on ClickOrlando.com, the News 6 Plus streaming app for your smart TV, and on YouTube. Just search News 6. And make sure to download the free News 6 Pinpoint Hurricane Tracker app. It is a great tool to have if you lose power. Just search WKMG in your app store. Still to come, you ask? We're answering. Get to know our Pinpoint weather team next. Pinpoint Doppler radar, the future in weather detection, only on News 6.
Now it's time to have a little bit of fun. These guys and gals are going to let their hair down a little bit. Many of you want to know more about them and sent in questions. I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, let's have everyone introduce themselves with a fun fact that people at home may not know about you, starting with Julie.
I'm Julie. My fun fact is I didn't know we were doing a fun fact. Is this what you asked me earlier? My fun fact is that I've read 36 books since January 1st.
Wow.
That's such a lot.
That's a
It's
lot.
not. I'll show you on my
it.
Kindle app.
I believe it.
I'll show you on my Kindle app.
36?
Yes. Or maybe like 35, but I'll check. It's in the 30s.
Bookworm.
We're not talking grammar school. We're talking legit books.
Yeah, it's not Curious George. These are they're chapter books, as the kids say. Like is that what little kids call them?
Novels.
Are there pictures in them?
No.
Jonathan?
Oh, my turn.
Hi.
I'm Jonathan. We're supposed to introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I really like the weather.
Okay.
That's
my fun
shocking.
Okay, I'm Candace. And you said Curious George. I have lost a Curious George book from the library since 1991.
Oh.
You could be arrested at
I know,
any
it's still
moment.
missing.
Wow.
I know. Miami-Dade Public Library. Better not come after me.
Is that admission of guilt?
Yes, it is.
Ew.
Tom?
Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells. I don't have a fun fact. I can't think of a single funny thing to say. No, I don't know.
You like tennis?
Is that fun?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a tennis player.
Every time I talk to
fancy
you,
my
playing
sentences.
tennis.
You have a
Every
guitar pick from someone famous.
I have several.
What?
Caught one from Pat Benatar's husband. And I have one that I stole from Johnny Cash. That's a fun fact.
Yeah.
Way to bury the lead.
I
That's a
stole a
good one.
guitar pick from Johnny Cash's house while he was on vacation.
Okay.
There you go. That's a fun fact. So I would have thought of
Got some criminals up here between you two. Jeez.
I'm meteorologist Samara Kokinas, and a fun fact, I was sitting here trying to think. I got so caught up in all their stories that I couldn't think of one other than I am from a town called Pearson, which is the fern capital of the world.
That is
Okay.
And it's right here in Central Florida. So.
Nice.
That's kind of fun.
No,
That's
it's
super
not.
fun.
It's really, I mean, it's great, but
Yeah.
I'm just
You've taught us a lot about ferns.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
She really
and
has.
cicadas.
Yes. She loves bugs.
Yes, she does. My goodness. I'm Michelle. I don't have a fun fact. I'm not a fun person.
Yes, you
Oh
are.
my goodness.
How about this? You started exactly 1 year ago.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We unveiled Michelle upon you
Unveiled.
during the hurricane special last year.
That's right.
Oh, she
That's
did
a
make
fun
her
fact.
debut last year if you guys were
Did
tuning
he?
in to the After Hours special. Crystal Johnson from Lowell, Massachusetts, and she asks if you have a favorite food. We'll start with Julie. What's your favorite food?
Oh gosh, I could go for a spicy tuna roll right now.
ooh.
Doesn't that sound good?
Is that your favorite?
I don't know. I mean, it varies. Like if I had to pick like My favorite thing ever, I don't know. Like if I were gonna, this is morbid, but if I were doing like a last meal, I don't know. It would be like Doritos and then like a spicy tuna roll.
Well, let me say this, since you all work in close quarters over in the Weather Center and you guys are doing 12 on, 12 off, what's the rule for what foods you can bring because tuna,
no tuna
has a smell to
no,
it?
we're not allowed to have tuna.
Yeah, tuna makes me ill.
Yeah, it does.
Does it really?
Yeah, it
oh my
does.
gosh.
And pickles,
okay, good,
no
good to
pickles.
know.
Yeah, I don't eat pickles either, but that's a long story.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but you can bring anything you want.
Okay.
You know, like, Jonathan, what's your favorite food?
Mac and cheese.
Yes!
Yeah.
That's good.
Classic.
A big old bowl of fruit.
Aw.
I know I'm the worst. It's so refreshing. It's like sweet and tart and got a little salt to it.
That can also be made into wine, so.
That's true. If you ferment it long enough.
Cheeseburger all day.
Yeah.
They know that. My favorite food's a cheeseburger or maybe a brownie.
Ooh.
What's your favorite hurricane snack?
M&Ms. I bring bags of M&Ms.
Huge bags.
And we work our way through them over the 3 days or 36 hours of continuous coverage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Samara?
I'm a crab leg fanatic.
Yes!
I can just go to town on them. So I enjoy it. Not blue crab though.
Yeah.
That's too meticulous for me. It has to be like
Okay.
Something easy.
like
Dungeness,
king crab, Dungeness crab. Yeah, I love seafood.
Okay.
So I'm a big seafood fan.
Michelle?
I love cheeseburgers, but with pickles.
Nope. She gave that look. She was like,
I love pickles, but I love a good cheeseburger.
Yeah.
You can watch the entire conversation right now on clickorlando.com/insider and the new 6 Plus streaming app. It's available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. This is Weathering the Storm, a new 6 Pinpoint Weather Hurricane Special. We gave you a lot of information, but if there's one thing to remember, it's start preparing now. We're here for you. Good night.